agency would go ahead and bank the water when water is available for banking, and we would use agency reserve funds, and based upon water previously used by different AVEK customers, they would have the right to buy it with the rate set at that time to cover our cost. And Dan, you might be able to expand a little bit more on that.
Certainly. Thank you, this is the Water Rates Committee met to set the rate for this calendar year, and it doesn't look like we're going to have a lot of water available to recharge anyway. But the committee decided that it would probably be more, more efficient to have the agency do any recharge if there was any recharge. The board has and the rates committee has an opportunity to set a rate when we go into 16. We set at the same time. We had in the last couple of years we've set the water rate at a slightly different time than we set the regular water rate, and that's why the committee met when they did and talked about it when they did. But you do have an opportunity for it to set the rate for 16 when we set the regular rate if we decide to do a recharge.
A minor amount of water, and the agency would use reserves. It was an ideal that Victor Weidenberger had brought up, and he thought that was made a lot of sense. And so, hopefully, if there's water to bank this year or in the future, the board would accept that.
So we did notice the meeting when to set the rate, but we are going to not need to have that one.
So I think it might be appropriate, that concept of, do we need we don't have wouldn't make a motion today, but if the board's in favor of that, then would we need a board order for that?
I don't know why you would need a board order, but if you, since it's on the agenda, if you wanted to adopt a motion tonight, you could. Even though you don't have a formal motion before you, or if you wanted, you could put it on.
I don't think there's a hurry, so this is the first the whole board's heard about it, so let's maybe talk about it a little bit next meeting and have a board order, and then have a little bit more discussion. Everybody, if there's any questions,
do we need to
have a chance to answer those.
A brief report about what happened on the garden, and it seemed to be a very timely item, as we all know that we're in the drought time, that we're in the 4th year of our drought, and this garden is going to be, we hope, will be a catalyst for change. And we know that education is really important, and having people that make changes is really important. And one of the best ways to make changes is to have something that they can see and that they can go out and touch and feel. And that's what this garden is all about, is giving them an opportunity that they can go out and see the different kinds of plant that grows in the community. Denise is going to talk about some of those kind of plants that we have in that garden. This garden has been planned for probably about 10 to 15 years, and thanks to you that we were able to get this garden off the ground and get it started and get it going. And so the next slide, please. Okay. Just to kind of give you a view of the nursery, this is the nursery. To kind of give you some, just looking up to your upper right-hand side, some of you to the upper left-hand side is where the garden is actually located. That's a picture of the nursery and how we anticipate on using that garden. And hopefully we're going to expand the garden at some point in time, but now we have about 3 acres of the garden started. Next. The garden purpose is to show community what can be planted in the Antelope Valley, and also the introduction to more native plants and how water can be used in the landscape, and also hands-on experience in the native plant garden. Native plant worksheets. We feel like we need to have some information to hand out to people when they come and ask about natives, because there's a lot of question about how do you grow natives, how do you take care of natives, and promote responsible use of our natural resources, which is soil and water. And those are two of the responsibilities that the resource conservation has, is soil and water. And also to identify, design, promote education, experimentation, materials and supplies. Claudette's going to talk about that. And of course, water conservation. How do we use our conservation? How do we use our water wisely in the landscape, and how do we use it wisely at home? Because it's very important at this time, as we all know, that we need to have measures and have people educated on how to use their resources. And one of the issues that we have in the community is that a lot of people live in the community, but they go away from the community down below to jobs, and so they don't have time, a lot of opportunities to attend a lot of the education facilities, education meetings that held here locally. Community sustainability, we feel like is very important. As we all know, that water is very important in sustaining our community and also developing our community as well too. And one of the great things about this garden is promote community partnerships. Okay, next. Some of the aspects of the garden is low water use, of course, plant selection, big deal. We're going to have a plant trail. We're going to have, when people can go to the nursery, they can have a trail, they can walk through the garden, and it will have signs on all the plants, and they can identify the kinds of plants that's in the landscape, and they can look at how some of these plants can be used in their landscape as well. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about soils, because that's one of the things that's often missed. When we talk about water conservation, we talk about the other issues, but we forget to talk about soils and the kind of soils that we have here. Our soils are highly productive soils, but they are highly erosive soils at the same time. So cover is really important for that, and how we use those soils are really important as well too. Self-guided tours will be there. We will have trails. We're talking about shade, having shade trees put in, and also have a functional landscape design as well, which Denise will also talk about next. And this is the garden location. This is the garden spot, and Denise is going to talk about that, how we're utilizing that space.
Mostly when I put it all together, because I talk to so many people at their kitchen tables, and everybody's at such a loss on what grows out here. I have a lot of people that bring things in from they come from the valley, they come from San Diego, they bring all these plants out here, and then they die in 10 minutes. So the biggest thing is that we want to make sure that we educate the public on what can be planted here, and have some of that in the nursery so people can purchase things, and then put landscapes together where plants are grouped together so they can see how design can be done, and that it will look good for them. And there's people that never work outside in their yards, and there's people that love to work in their yards. So there's different plants that people need to use for that kind of function. The other big thing is the children's area, which Claudette's going to talk about more. That was one thing we want to have open to schools to come and talk about soils with kids, talk about planting with kids, and the native garden area specifically for the natives that will grow out here in the Antelope Valley. And then we have 2 areas where we're going to do specific designs, like if you have a front yard or a backyard, and put them together off of the website that I designed, the landscape designs for AVEK. So we're going to take the AVEK designs that I did specifically for the website and put them in those 2 areas so people can see exactly what they look like instead of on paper and on the computer. So that's pretty much been our goal, and we've done quite a bit with the 11 people that have been in it for 3.5 years. It's been our passion project, and we just really hope that we can just keep moving forward with it.
See a stepwise design.
See it live, so that people can actually like reach that touch and feel and see how things grow. And irrigation, that's the other big thing too, is for them to see how to irrigate, because with the way things are going, it's getting a little scary. So
I have a question. This is very interesting. It seems like it should be tied into the building industry, city or somehow, where homeowners could see their houses. After last week, there's going to be we're going to see a series of new laws, especially in areas like ours where it's going to be restricting this type of plant. The plant industry is talking from down below in San Diego. So, low tolerance.
Yeah, just to add on to Denise, the real big, we need to kind of really, I'm not trying to say to the board, but this does is the nearest native plant is the Cane Foundation in Sun Valley. Most of the native plants they sell or push are on the other side of the coastal range. And so they're trying to bring even those native plants, even though they're native plants, they don't do well here. So being able to get something that's showing and using and being able to purchase native plants from this area is, I think, a very important thing.
Extremely.
So, sorry, Claudette.
that's okay.
If you look at Denise's plan, all the green is basically what's in there, so all those are trees and different things that are in there, and it looks really great if you guys want to go out and take a look. We've got so many more trees and things that are being planted. But if you look to the left of that and down, that's where the children's area is going to be. And basically, it's really more of a gathering place to gather kids that are bused in. And what the kids can do, when the buses come in, they'll be gathered in that area where we can actually give a little talk to them. And then they'll be able to go through the kids area, which is going to have some demonstration in it. And then they'll be able to go through the garden. And then they'll be able to go through the nursery. And then they'll be able to go to our solar area. So they'll be learning quite a number of things just in the tour itself. But what we'd like to do in the children's area is to have seating for about 65 kids. We do have the Boy Scouts or the Eagle Scouts, I think, that are building some seating for us, so we do have some participation in there already. We're still going to need the seating for about 65 kids because that's about a busload of kids, and that's about all that anybody can handle at one time. I mean, that's a lot of kids, really. And then they'll have mulch areas where they can touch different mulches, possibly worm areas where they can touch worms if they want to. We'll have a planting area for them. So those are the types of things that are good in that children's area. It's not like a big area yet. I mean, later on, when we get our buildings done, we actually have more money, which won't probably be for a while. We can maybe do another type of an educational center, or we can even do more. I think what we'd like to do too in the future, in a couple of years, maybe next year, is to do a brochure on plants for kids. It'd be like a booklet. I think many of you know about the high desert, California high desert plants. Well, we would like to do something like that for kids, sustainable and native plants that kids could look at and enjoy. That'll not only help them in the future, but it'll actually help their parents. So I think it's a good thing to look forward to doing. So that's kind of the idea about the kids garden, unless you have any questions.
What is the cross street?
Okay.
It's about 100 or 101. I mean, there's no cross street right there, but it's 103rd, 101st. What's that?
101.48
Yeah.
West Avenue Live. As Neil was talking about, in the native plant game, you do have to go out of town to get native plants. And one of the things that we hope to accomplish here is the plants that really work here, that works for the homeowners here, are the plants that the nursery hope to grow here. And that you can go out and get those plants at the nursery, so the plants will be climatized once you go and purchase the plants. And so that's really important for the area. And it's been the goal for the district for a long time. All the plants that the district mostly grows out there are plants that's really climatized for this area. Okay, next. That's a picture of a couple of areas there. You can see one of those circles we have that's been completed. I think Glenn completed that circle with all the native plants in it. So if you would like to see some more of those, you can certainly go out and look at those. We'd be glad to give you a tour. In the foreground on the bottom picture there, you see mulch on the ground. We use mulch in the parking lot. The parking lot also has shade trees. We want to have lots of shade trees in the facility because we think it's very important when people go out that they have a place to stop and rest and have an opportunity to be in shade as well too. And also get a chance to see some of the trees, how they grow, how big they get, if they're interested in buying those kinds of plant materials for their home use. Okay, net so far that's been given for the project in the last 3 years. Okay, next.
Just quickly on that.
Okay.
Just I'm going to speak up because I'm kind of that. I'd say between the committee members, probably regulated at least 20,000 in time, materials, doing deals and things like that. So we have a lot of individuals that are also supporting. Sorry.
And that's been one of the most impressive things about this whole project is that we've had people come to the table and work and give to this program. And that's one of the things I like about the Antelope Valley, that it's really a giving community. It looks out for itself. And so those are some of the kinds of things that has happened so far. The committee, and there's a group of the committee members that's been on the project for the last 3 years. And so we're excited about that, and they continue to give their time and their energy to the project. Okay, next. So the budget for this coming year, we still have some substantial stuff that we need to do, and those are lists of the activities that we need this year, and that's the budget that we're running for this year, that we're working to accomplish this year to finish those items that we have for 2015. Okay, next. why are we doing all of this? And the reason is this, one of the reasons is for our kids. They are our future. And if we can get to them and teach them how to use their resources wisely, and it's important for us to do that so in the future that they have some resources left for them, and they'll know how to take care of the resources that they have. Because most of the kids don't have the opportunity today to do that, because a lot of us came from farms. In the good old days, we came from farmland, so we knew what the value of land was and how to take care of that. But since we live with mostly urban dwellers today, we need to communicate that to our children. And one of the greatest things about teaching our children is that the children help take that message back to the parents where we're really looking to take the message back to. So we appreciate all that you've done, and we just continue to look forward and continue to look forward to your participation in this great endeavor that we're doing. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, question? Is he teaching the cat conservation?
Well, that's the mice get out there. He's part of the resource issue out there.
The habitat area, yeah.
He works, we put him to work.
So we made that contribution in 2014. Is there a request for a contribution in 2015?
There was no, I mean, there's no official request, but there wasn't one last time either.
So that's what you're asking?
Yes.
Why don't you send a letter to us asking for the amount
Okay.
to the board president, and then he can assign it to the committee, and then they can meet with you. That's, I mean, that's what you
Sure.
Yeah. And so can we let you know what you're doing, or what you're gonna do with the new money?
Okay.
The board has actually already approved $200,000 for the conservation program overall. And the Water Conservation Committee is recommending putting $160,000 of that towards the grant program for conservation programs for our customers this year. That's $10,000 less than it was last year. So last year, the board approved $170,000 towards the grant program. This year, it's just $10,000 less. We also talked about recommending the deadlines for the applications, which will be in May here coming up soon. And then also the projects would be basically projects that are in place right now, really happening right now, and we go through the middle of this year. So the Water Conservation Committee is recommending those approvals for the board to look at, and then also to release the application and the invite letter and the FAQs for this year's program.
What is the money going towards? Is it going, removing vegetation, drought-resistant vegetation? That's what I want, I mean.
Yeah, there's a list of many conservation programs. The bigger ones are going to be LA County Waterworks, for example, with the turf removal, with the Cash for Grass programs. Other programs are, sprinkler systems, or we do have leaks in there for water systems with leaks, things like that. People are fixing these and seeing an increase in
What do you mean water leaks?
repairing water leaks in their systems, or somehow conserving water. If they can show that they're conserving water through this program, then that was what the committee recommended.
But you're saying, I don't understand, I don't understand, you're saying water leaks. I'm not supporting any home repair work.
No, it's not home repair. Right, what we're trying to do here is, and I'm not saying bad at the board or anything like that, when we put the 50% match in, which I agree with, I'm not saying, the small mutuals don't have the money to reserve to
That's their
match.
problem. Raise the water rate. You know what, this is, okay, I'm telling you now, I am not supporting, I'm just on one director, but you know what? That is strictly for drought resistant. I can't help if these people don't want to raise their water rate, $5 an acre foot to fix their plumbing. There is definitely a problem with this, I'm telling you. They're not doing what this program is set up for. This money is supposed to be removing vegetation and putting drought-resistant vegetation for long term, not to become a plumber. We're not a plumber, and it's not our problem, okay? We're not a plumber. We're just not a plumber.
Use the grant money for save significant water if, and that is what our focus is conserving water. None of the small companies putting for grant money. We're trying to encourage them to put in grants to save water.
Okay, then I want the water companies to waive my insurance policy that I have to have for my winery over there for Cal Water, because they want to charge me an insurance policy that if I break something and the water's running down the road, I have to pay for it, unless I have this insurance policy. But they don't have to pay for it when we give them the grant money. So there's something wrong with this picture. There is definitely something wrong with this picture.
Frank, we don't even know if they're going to pay for it. This was just something that we thought would be a way to give the smaller companies the ability to use this grant and to save water.
I have people all the time telling me in the field that they'd love to take the money. They said the water district does not offer it because they don't want to match it. And this is what I was told. I've been told by hundreds and hundreds of people, not 10 people, hundreds. And the districts do not want to raise their rates to create a fund to match the funds that we're giving them. I can't believe, we're even hearing this, that we can't give away $60,000, $70,000 of free money, and the mutuals out there don't want to match it to help conserve water. Something doesn't make sense here.
Frank, this is just experimenting to see if it works, see how many people take advantage of it, and see how much water we can save.
But the problem is, Rob, the problem with this is, they're charging the homeowner money if their pipes break. They're not reimbursing them for their pipes. So why are these people, we're giving them money to fix their pipes, but the homeowner doesn't get reimbursed for the water they lose? They're getting charged.
For the water bill.
Yeah, I'll show the letter. Cal Water
No,
says,
I understand.
they actually say in there, you want to buy this insurance policy in case there's an accident, you don't have to pay the water. But yet they're going to come in here and take $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to fix some of their pipelines to match it? I'm just.
This money was gonna go into how, if they wanted to do low flow toilets, if they wanted to do low flow urinals, if they wanted to do cash for grass, it was totally up to that water company, that purveyor, whatever, to decide what was the best use of our matching money and their matching money. So there was nothing that was exclusively for lawn removal or exclusively for whatever it is. It was to help them get through their conservation program.
There might be a problem with the gift of public funds here, replacing their toilets.
So different than replacing the landscape.
Okay, go on.
Yes, sure.
The water leak repair, was that offered last year?
I didn't know anything about it tonight. Go ahead.
Was it offered last year?
I believe we used it for matching on a couple of them at the end of the period in order for them to have matching funds.
Okay, so we did offer it and somebody did take advantage of it.
That one customer.
Who was that?
Mill Valley,
Okay, and how much did we give them in they now?
5,000.
$5,000.
And that was Cal Water?
No, Lake Elizabeth Mutual Water Company.
Okay.
Mr. President, in light of some of the discussion, would it maybe be more productive to the committee review and clarify a little bit more later?
I don't know.
I have one more question for the staff. The thing you just said. I want to see where it was written in the policy by the committee and the board that it specifically says it was to repair plumbing.
We didn't specifically say replace turf. We said use this for your water conservation program.
So what, it was, plumbing was not in there.
Grass wasn't in there.
Well, I think we need to rewrite the whole program, because there's something wrong here.
I think water conservation is water conservation.
What does that mean in English? I don't understand what that
Reduce
means.
your use of water.
Okay.
But if they're not being, the agencies aren't being responsible and taking care of their pipes like we have to,
Yeah.
is that water conservation or is that your responsibility?
Again, you can.
Director Weisberger, for the board, this item is a rebate program for, in conjunction with the Better Built program for, Better Built Home program for Lancaster, and that the city of Lancaster has implemented. And there was a considerable amount of information provided in the staff report. I won't go over all of that particular information, just provide some highlights about the program. We do have Carlisle Workman here for the city of Lancaster in case there's any particular questions about that particular aspect, and we will have a small presentation by Mark Petroff from Nexus Water in just a few minutes. Just to go over what we hope to talk about, a little bit about the Better Build program and what it's about, the certification that was recently received by Nexus e-water systems. Talk a little bit about this new technology, a little bit about the review process that has gone on over the last year as this program has developed, and then discuss the committee recommendations that will be presented to the board for consideration. The Better Built Home program that the City of Lancaster has adopted, this is an adopted program. It's an incentive-based program for the construction of sustainable or more sustainable homes. They use a point system to determine eligibility, and if you put in enough features, both from a water, wastewater, energy, and environmental point of view, then you're able to qualify for 25% reduction in your impact fees as part of their program. They have asked AVEK to consider providing a rebate for the installation of a gray water system as part of a water conservation measure from our agency. To give you a little idea about the Nexus e-water systems, most of you have had an opportunity to have a presentation or see those at the Net Zero Home. But the Nexus e-water system was the first to have a self-contained gray water system. It's actually received these NSF, ANSI 350, 351 standards. It recently completed the certification. This is essentially a very important step in that what it really means is that the system works and it meets the standards that have been established by these independent testing and certification organizations. Just in case you were wondering, the NSF means National Sanitation Foundation, and the ANSI is American National Standard Institute. That's what the acronyms talk about. This is the concept of using gray water for irrigation and having a significant water conservation measure is not new. What has been difficult and what hasn't been able to be achieved to this point was the unintended negative consequences from using gray water. Because we use it in a sprinkler system in the normal aspects, you have the potential for contamination because you haven't treated the water. You just take gray water out and use it, whether that be incidental contact through an irrigation system, gets dragged into other places. So it's been very, very difficult to implement, even though gray water has been allowed for use. Most of the gray water systems up to this point have been subsurface kind of irrigation type system, so there's no personal contact or separation between the potable water system in the home and the gray water system, so there's no interconnection. The real advantage to the Nexus e-water system is it solves this problem really by treating the water before it's actually exposed to public contact. Public contact, I should say. So that treatment is the key aspect. However, because it is such new technology, there's not a lot of installations. We don't have a lot of history. We don't have a lot of prior uses that we could look back upon and say, we can anticipate this kind of water savings because there really isn't that many systems on a larger scale in the market at the present time.
They're based here in Lancaster, as a matter of fact, with offices in San Diego and a few other locations. We're a new company, and we're pulling this new technology out of Australia. Why Australia? And the reason is that Australia went through a huge drought, a 15-year-long drought, a mega drought. I actually was living in Australia for a few years in the 1990s, saw it firsthand. And the approaches that they took down there are almost running concurrent with what we're doing here in California, but with about a 15-year delay. And so The enabler of bringing this technology was that back in 2003, effective January 1 of 2014, so 13, 14, the plumbing code was changed in California to allow a standard of quality, water quality, for gray water once it's processed. And gray water has had sort of an iffy name because most of it has been sort of hobbyist using gray water. It's hasn't been treated and so forth. And now, thanks to the NSF and ANSI standard that we went through over a 12-month period, we now have a certified system. And hopefully I'll be able to.
Do you have this at KB Homes over there?
Yes, we do, at the Dawn Creek facility and also pilot projects in Sacramento and Encino. Okay, so what we have is a sort of a first practical recycling system. And when we say recycling, we don't mean Title 22 purple pipe kind of water. We're talking about gray water. And gray water represents about 65% of a home's use. And so the key first step that builders need to do in order to build more sustainable homes is to make sure that when they build a new home, that you separate the black water from the gray water. Again, gray water is 2 out of every 3 gallons. And our approach, the approach that our industry partner KB Home and the City of Lancaster and hopefully AVEK, is that we want to make sure that all new homes built in the Antelope Valley have this dual plumbing. And once you separate the water, then, and only then, can you capture the gray water effectively, clean it up in batches, and then use it for either spray irrigation or subsurface. And in subsurface, because it's clean, it doesn't clog up all the nozzles. Water resiliency is something that the builders and environmentalists, I think, can all get behind. We know we're using too much water. This will be one way to help reduce that. Okay, so to just give you, and this will be the only graph that I show, this is on the left, the typical home is what you would have if you had built your home 10, 20, 30 years ago. If you're building a modern home now with EPA water sense features and fixtures, then you're using about 500 gallons per home per day. And again, a lot of that is this lawn watering. So what our approach in gray water system is we take this indoor water and we reuse it a second time for irrigation, car washing, and other approved uses. It's obviously not something you'd want to take a shower in, but the water quality standards are quite high. So the City of Lancaster is our partner on this. I think you're all familiar with what they're trying to accomplish here. They've offered up a per home rebate of $3,000. Next slide.
It's going to the homeowner?
It actually goes to, I guess, the builder first, if it's being built as a new home. So the format of this is the 25% impact fee reduction. And I think the average impact fees, and perhaps help me out on this, are about $10,000 to $15,000. That represents about a $3,000. Yes. That's the math. Yeah. So this is what it looks like in reality here. You have a thing that looks like, I guess the best way to describe it is an appliance. And then you've got a couple of collection points. You've got a collection point for the gray water, and then it gets cleaned in this appliance in 10-gallon batches, and it gets dropped in this 200-gallon gray water container. And then that in turn feeds the irrigation system. And
Can you show that again, because the director will look over here?
that every 6 months, for at least the first 2 years, that the equipment be inspected. We also have, we're monitoring about 20 parameters each day, pump on off, and a number of other technical pieces of data that describe how much water is going through. And if the water starts not processing properly, there's an automatic default. And when it falls off, then all the gray water goes straight to the sewer. So, and the process that we use is a 4-step. It's a filtration process, flocculation, ozonization, and then a UV. So all the E. coli are all wiped out. so that you can safely and comfortably irrigate your backyard and have your kids playing around in it. And it's also approved for vegetable gardens as well.
Is that 200-gallon tank, is that under pressures or?
No, it's all gravity. It's all gravity.
How does it get out of there to your yard?
You have a pumping system that is connected into the irrigation network.
Okay, so it's still connected to the city water?
No, sir. There is a air gap and a automatic feed line in. So let's say you go on vacation for 2 weeks. You're not producing any gray water because nobody's home taking showers. In which case, the water will come from the city and fill into the reservoir, and that way you never brown out your yard if you have that. So I'm not going to go through the steps, but basically the key is separate the gray water at construction. It's very expensive to do after you've already poured the slab. So the key is to make the developers do it on the front end, because otherwise the cost is crazy. It's a plumbing nightmare, basically. Next slide. So this might be a little bit of a simplification, but we'll try it anyway. The blue water is the city water. This is how much you would buy. And before you put in one of these recyclers, you're using some portion on your lawn. And both the black water and the gray water are combined together. So in the new improved Nexus house, you end up buying less water. You still have water for your lawn, and you're discharging less sewerage water.
Is any of the gray water, I don't know, something, I thought I heard something.
The last 20 years, there's no biological or chemical process. So you can kind of think of it like a water plant, except without a big dose of chlorine. And it's sort of like a wastewater plant, but you don't have the biologicals going on. That's a little, I think, better picture of that image that you were looking at, sir. So gray water looks gray, and then it looks a lot better afterwards. We have gotten certification. That should be the first slide, before, after. And the drivers, of course, are drought. This is the drought picture in December. It actually has gotten worse again. Next slide. And the other thing which, you here in the Antelope Valley have done a terrific job of keeping very, very low rates for water and wastewater. Now, this is a commissioned study by Black & Veatch, the large consulting engineering firm of the 50 largest metro areas. And the year-over-year increase in water and sewer was 8%. So if you go to some of the rainy areas like Atlanta and Washington and Boston, their water and sewer rates are 4 to 7 times what you have here. So a terrific job of somehow keeping such low rates in such a dry climate. I think we're almost there. So we've gotten some national and international awards. And this is what our new generation that's coming out in May looks like. It's lower, it's about half the height. We worked with 3 of the largest construction home builders in the U.S. helping us to optimize this. Next slide. And that's what it looks like inside. It's modular. And the next slide. And this is what it looks like on the side. That might help a little bit. Probably needs and then this thing is mounted on piers that are part of the foundation. So we've had the geotech guys look at this and feel happy that it won't have troubles during at least a moderate earthquake. And I think that might be it. But yes, okay. Thank you so much. Builders, we have a multiple-year contract. At least for the first 2 years, all those activities are done by us as part of the front end. Afterwards, there's a service period. Every 6 months, we would want to have some regular maintenance done. That can be done by the homeowner. We can ship them a little filter to swap out, but we also are getting data back, so we'll know whether or not it needs maintenance in the land.
So that was the question. Is this hooked up to a phone line, isn't it?
Cellular or Wi-Fi. Cellular or Wi-Fi. And so the cellular is a little very low cost. I think it's about $3 or $4 a month tie-in fee. so our belief is that water districts and cities will want to have this data so they can figure out who's using what when. And on a macro basis, it should be very interesting. And also you'll be able to know if the homeowner shuts off the system. And then I think that might be cause for some sort of activity by the city saying, hey, why did you shut off your water recycling?
Have you had people who have built their own custom home, have these installed?
Yeah, we have, we only have, because we have not gotten certification until 2 weeks ago, we have a home in Carmel, also one in Encino. The Encino one has been running about a year and a half here.
Okay, what is their maintenance on that thing, every 6 months?
Yeah, it's designed, you swap the filter every 6 months, and then once a year you change the UV bulb. And that can be done by the homeowner
Or service?
or through a service. And perhaps service, we're happy to do the service, we might have third parties do it, and perhaps even municipal entities might.
Roughly what cost, I'm just curious.
We think that all in, because we'll try to do all the service in one densely packed neighborhood, that an annual fee would be somewhere on the range of $100 to $150.
A year?
Yes, sir.
The recycler is installed.
And I know that was discussed with the city council and through your planning commission, but what was the reason you decided to do that?
Well, the same thing you said. If you do not plumb it before you build the building, there really is no going back and trying to do it later. So if we want to maintain any flexibility to have it added after the fact, we need to have the pipe plumbing put in when it's originally built, slab under grade, on grade, so that there is that possibility in the future.
The cost of plumbing is insignificant compared to what the cost of the whole system is. So it's incentivizing people to look into the future to work towards a sustainable community, even if they have one room that can't afford to use it at that time, or if the builder incentivizes the builders to put in the plumbing, so all of us will have the options to buy those houses. So that's the reason we're trying to throw in a rebate at this time. It just makes sense that we enable people to work towards the system. That's one way you can.
Mr. President? Water supply, our allocation remains at 20%. Oroville has slipped a little bit, 68% of historical average, and San Luis has also slipped a little bit to 75%. This is the reservoir conditions. You see the red line is the historical average, so Oroville is well below the historical average in San Luis. A lot of news there. This is the Northern Sierra precipitation. Again, this is precipitation, so it's not snow level or anything like that. It's you can see it's kind of flattened out since that last storm in February. So we're at 30.6 right now. Or excuse me, 31.6. This is the sad part of the story. This is the snow water content, and you'll see the blue line, the solid blue line is this year's. The red line is 1977, which was an epic dry year. So as you know, you probably saw in the paper a month or so ago, it was at 19%. So it's continued to slip. So snowpack is very good. Last year was higher than that. I think it was in the, it was in the teens. It was a little below.
This guy's. He's had so many contacts with people.
This is the 10-day forecast for the Feather River, and it doesn't look that good either. You can see that the actual was about half an inch for the last 10 days, and about half an inch. And the snow levels kind of range from 12,000 to a little 5,000, 500 forecast for big storms coming or anything in the next 10 days. This is the 1 month outlook for temperature probability, so it's looking like the next month or so is actually going to be warmer than normal. So it's just like bad news about
Oh, West Coast,
yeah, and you know, parts of the country are colder, quite a bit colder. This is the 1 month outlook for precipitation. So this projection shows kind of standard. It's equal chance is what EC stands for. So, but you don't get a lot of rain this time of year. You know, you get spring storms and so forth. Here's Oroville. Not a lot of change, creeping up just a little bit from the last board meeting, but again, still well below 2 million, which is really the point where Oroville actually helps us out. There is a criteria. We have settlement contractors on the Feather River, you know, water rights settlement contractors, and their contract says if it's really dry, they don't get their water out of the river, and in fact they're susceptible to a 50% cut. It looks like that might actually happen. It hasn't happened in years. I didn't think it would ever happen again, but it looks like they'll cut water right holders, which really it'll back water into San Luis or into Oroville, but it really won't help us in exports much. So not really super good news, but it just kind of reflects how bad things are even in Northern California. Here is San Luis Reservoir, and this is, you know, we can see that it's almost up to 1 million acre feet, which is the 20% that we have allocated is south of the Delta. So it would have to be something crazy to really have them back off 20%. So the 20% is pretty solid. It's just going to be, there's an operations committee tomorrow, and they'll talk about their new operations studies and so forth. But you know, it may creep up a little bit, but I wouldn't expect big changes in the allocation shorter. Operations, yeah, Quartz Hill is trickling along. It dropped a little bit. It's down to 7 MGD now. And Roseman, East Side, and their Palmdale connection are off. And we are extracting 2.5 going to Mojave, and 11 going to 80. Water quality remains good. I reported last board meeting on the water quality. It's been excellent. We're pumping a lot of groundwater, but groundwater quality has been very good, and our pHMs are real low, and so forth, so it's very good shape, considering how dry it's been. On the state water project, a few items. As I mentioned last board meeting, there's a couple ways to get water. There's state water project programs. One is the turnback pool that contractors can, if they have table A that they know they're not going to use, they can put it in the turnback pool, and they can get a little money for it. And they also have a multi-year pool where you can, if you have water that you don't think you're going to need, you can put it in a multi-year pool that's for this year and next year. And I handed out that very complicated chart, and you know, it looked like we might be exposed to $4 million. Well, they came out with the allocation today, and we got 174 acre feet. So there wasn't a lot of water in either. Well, there was no water in the turnback pool and very little water multi-year. There was a total of 3,000 was put into the pool, and it gets split between everybody that wants to participate. So if you get Kern County Water, you can see in Metropolitan involved, you get 68% of this.
So
We got 174 acre feet. Yeah. No, it's helpful. We have received a check from Santa Clara for $3.75 million for the exchange. We anticipate another check from Coastal here for their $3.75 million for our exchanges. So they asked for wiring instructions, so that's coming in. The department has finalized, I think they finalized both agreements, so we're on track. In the pass-around file, you might have noticed the State Water Contractors Organization wrote support letters on both of these exchanges to the Department of Water Resources. And one of the paragraphs is they feel like it's consistent with the departments encouraging contractors to try to work a lot of these water supply issues out between themselves rather than have the department come in and try to force things down these threads. So it was very well received at the board meeting last week, and the deputy director was joking about AVEK legend, but he was saying great things about AVEK. But it was well received by the participants and the other contractors. Delta water rates, I just wanted to mention the fact that in past years, there's farmers and other users that are in the Delta, and they've just really pretty much diverted as much water as they could utilize. You know, they never really had any restrictions. Last year, State Water Contractors Organization did some research, and it looked like they were diverting water that really wasn't their water right water. They started the process. They kind of encouraged the water board to look into this further, and it looks like this might actually get traction this year. They might actually have Delta water right holders document their use and their water rights. So it is something that collectively as state water contractors we've been able to kind of get the State Water Resources Control Board to kind of check into this. Contract amendments are continuing. I will probably, well, I'll be in Sacramento again next week, and this is to talk about how we would pay for this Delta fix if we participated, and also to add management and water efficiency opportunities to the contract. Right now, we have to jump through a lot of hoops and it kind of streamline the process. That's what those negotiations are about. Just updates, we have met with Metropolitan again, talking about at least a pilot longer-term program, you know, with banking program. They are very interested in doing something with it. We have another meeting scheduled, and I anticipate after maybe this next meeting that we would go to, I think the Finance Committee wanted to have a look at these, but we should probably have something that's somewhat staffed so that the committees can start taking a look at it. We've also initiated conversation with Central Coast, who did an exchange with us this year. They are also interested in doing some research. So, and again, I'll be in this week, but I'll be in Sacramento for a couple of days.
All right. Okay, so we're going to have a quick update on the East Side Water Bank. What we're going to look at is just a quick construction progress with some photos. Just report on that. Then talk about the results of that well that was re-drilled. And I've got up there Southwest P&D, Southwest Pump and Drilling activity. Essentially, this was on their dime to do this because they lost a bit in the ground. Decided instead of moving just 50 feet over that they'd move across the site and drill in a different location. Good, promising results out of that. And then a proposal to re-drill ES1. That's the one that essentially we couldn't really get much water. Got a lot of sand out of it, but we couldn't get really any water out of it. So we really had to just back away from that well. And looking at the results we had from ES2, maybe we'll look to do a proposal to re-drill. So anyway, construction photos. These two items are in very scarce supply here in the state right now. If you have a drilling rig and a drill tool, you're making money. One of the larger well drillers here in the valley has a 2-year backlog on his rigs. We've even asked them to do a certain amount of well rehab, and they politely decline every time. You know, we're talking, you know, pretty relatively simple work, but they just don't have the ability to staff to do it. So we're very fortunate to have folks out there that have the ability to do this work with us right now. This is one of the other contractors doing some grading work, doing their mass grading out there, getting ponds ready. These are engineered ponds that we're going to spread water. Down at the bottom there, you can see them unloading some pipe on the right there. That's what we call in the industry C900. It's plastic pipe that we'll use on the site. And then on the left there, those are what we call industry pump cams. The pumps that we use to return water to the aqueduct will live inside those pump cams. And they're working pretty actively on foundation work. Actually, at the bottom there, you see what we're calling the splitter box. That's kind of a big structure to move water into the ponds. They did a bunch of the concrete on that today. They're out there pouring concrete. They're doing prep there. At the top there, that photo is a little out of scale, that's actually a well site. It looks huge, but it really is not. It's probably a 50 by 20 slab that we'll put in there eventually. But that's, you see all the conduit and piping that is required. It's pretty involved, but you know, we're looking at having pretty good well equipment set up out there. The little building over it and everything. So that's ES4. That's one of the 2 wells that have been successful out there. This, you know, as far as the construction. Anyway, let's move on to ES2R, the well drilling results. I got a call a couple Sundays ago that they had reached 560 feet, which is our intended target, and that they want to know if they should go further. They hadn't hit bedrock yet, which is good. So we talked about it and decided to go down another 100 feet. They still didn't hit bedrock at another 100 feet. But they did find that that location is weathered bedrock, which is where we've had problems with our other 2 wells. We start getting into weathered bedrock, that starts to mean possibly lower yield. So we stopped at 660 feet. The well capacity, the well's been what is known as E-log. Looks like probably 1,200 GPM capacity when we're fully recharged out there. And at this time, there's no cost increase or time extension needed to deal with the extra depth. So they're actually, I believe they have the casing on site right now. So they turned that around pretty quick. So they should be installing that casing, putting the gravel around it, and start doing the pump testing. So it looks really good. So moving on to doing a redrill on ES1, we'll call this ES1R. Just a quick review. This map, we talked a bit about this map quite a bit yesterday in finance. Shows kind of some of the locations in the nearby area that have, you know, successful wells that are producing and also have good depth to them. And these 2 arrows show where the original locations of those wells are. We now move this well up to this location, and then we move this well, ES1 up to that location there. This is where we did our original bore, went down about 600 feet right here. Other information that's here is these were resistivity tests that were done. The company comes out and will lay a long electric line along the ground, and they do kind of an echoing to see where bedrock is. And some of the results that came out of that helped us to decide that this parcel was a good parcel to buy. You can see over here on the far end, the numbers are much smaller. You know, we're looking, in some cases, about 600 feet here, maybe about 300, and about 400 there. So, until we drilled those 2 wells, we thought, you know, pretty much this whole site was very good and usable. And these lines that have been superimposed on the map is just a guess that maybe that we're looking at an area that is good for water supply. We've got kind of a band. So this is the site plan as it kind of currently stands. And just a quick reminder, here was ES2. We're talking about taking, and or we did that and we moved that, and that's when we just drilled ES2R. With ES2R looking really good, we're recommending we move forward with drilling ES1R at this point. Currently, benefits of this would be to take capacity from about 5.2 MGD that would provide up to 6.6 MGD with 1 more additional well based on our current water levels. That would be about 130 acre feet a month, roughly 1,500 acre feet a year. Significant. When it's fully recharged, we're looking at going from about 6.8 to 8.6 MGD, and that would be about 165 acre feet a month. That would be over 2,000 acre feet a year. So we think it's well worth it if we have a successful well at ES1R, that we've got the production capacity there that will make it worth it to do that. That would be 8.6 would be all 4 wells running. Right, 5.2, but the individual well would be 130 acre feet a month to 165 acre feet a month. This just 1 well. So again, you may ask why now? Well, it captures the drilling rig. The drilling rig is sitting there, it's ready to move somewhere else. We don't want to use it. We won't have them use it. So that, it's difficult to get rigs now. So if we want to do it now, it's the right time to do that. If we decide to do it later, there's a remote cost of about $22,000 that we have to incur. And essentially, all we need to pay for is the drilling activities at this point. The equipping activities are already in current contracts. So we'd be able to move forward with just one change order on this particular project. So one thing to think about, we did get extra depth on this current well that we just drilled. So we're recommending that we go ahead and have enough money in the budget to allow for extra depth, about 50 feet at least. So we're expecting to go down to about 610 feet on this well, possibly, and like I said, additional 50 feet. Our estimated drilling cost right now for this is $440,000. And that will be a finished hole turned over to the next contractor to equip. Pretty much ready to go. So recommendation is that approve change order number 5 for Southwest Pumps and Drilling to a not to exceed $440,000. And notice that in your agenda there actually are 2 change orders noted. We ended up not needing the first one. We left that as a placeholder. So this is actually the second one that's listed in your agenda.